After promising $20 billion worth of investment to Pakistan, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is in India. Now, that's where the Crown Prince met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where the two vowed to dismantle terrorism. Some are reading the string of visits and investments as a pivot towards Asia after heightened tensions with Western countries over the murder of Saudi columnist Jamal Khashoggi and over criticism of the war in Yemen. For more, we turn to former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras. Jim, thanks for joining us on this one.
Thank you, Scotty.
Okay, so what are the implications of the significant economic interdependency we are seeing between these two countries?
Well, I guess we're actually talking about three countries because Mohammed bin Salman went to Pakistan and also to India. The Saudis have a very long-standing relationship with Pakistan, which, by the way, involves supporting a lot of terrorism with Saudi money. You know, despite all the blab about Iran being the #1 sponsor, Saudi Arabia is, and Pakistan, which is itself a prime sponsor of Islamic terrorist groups, they've got a very long relationship there. But the outreach to India is something I think he wants to build. Look, this is part of MBS's Cash for Khashoggi tour, that he is trying to buy his way out of the doghouse he got crawled into when Khashoggi was killed. And if you lay enough cash around, he bets he can get out of that doghouse.
Well, you sort of touched on this, but how credible is their promise to combat terrorism then?
That's not, it's not credible at all. President Trump has been beating that drum, and maybe he believes it. I don't know. Maybe it's all dependent on how much military hardware they buy, or for that matter, how much nuclear hardware they buy.
Well, that's the question. Should we be worried about Saudi Arabia becoming a nuclear power? Does that trouble you?
Of course it is. I mean, it's very troubling, just like we worry a lot about Pakistan's. Of course, they have nuclear weapons. We worry about what could happen to that arsenal, given how unstable that state is. Saudi Arabia is not a stable state either, and even though they wouldn't necessarily have the capability to build nuclear weapons if we put proper safeguards on civil nuclear power development, there's a long-standing relationship with the Pakistanis, and even talk that they could get nuclear weapons from the Pakistanis.
That's the question. So do you feel that Iran is justified then in their reaction, considering the U.S. has threatened them over the Iran nuclear deal, and yet they're more than willing to sit back and let Saudi Arabia become a nuclear power?
If their complaint is that there's a double standard or triple standard or quadruple standard, where one standard is applied to Iran, where there are all sorts of safeguards and inspections and things both internationally and under the JCPOA that we pulled out of, as opposed to a blank check for the Saudis, which is what they're used to in this town, since they own half of this town. Yeah, of course there's a double standard.
Well, does someone have to be a nuclear power within that area, or is it sort of unrealistic to think that everybody has to be on the same page, everybody has to have transparency, everybody has to have the same amount and know what everybody has? Is that sort of unrealistic to think that could be possible?
Well, some people have pointed out that there's a stabilizing aspect of nuclear powers. There was no World War III between the United States and the Soviet Union because we'd all die.
Right.
That there were several wars between India and Pakistan, but since they both have nukes, there's been no more wars between India and Pakistan. The Israelis have nuclear weapons. The Iranians don't have them, maybe would like them. The Saudis don't have them, maybe would like them. Maybe the Turks do. Some people would give you the argument if they all had nukes, maybe the region would become more peaceful, until it didn't.
Right. Well, what about some of these that are literally, their motivation is leadership? Some of these leaders want to destabilize the community and make sure that it's always up in uproar. What is keeping them from actually unleashing some sort of a nuclear attack on one of their enemies, whether it be the U.S. or anyone else?
Well, first off, the ones that don't have nuclear weapons can't do that.
But if they got one.
Well, if they got one. And I guess the question is, and this is what we hear about the North Koreans as well, they're crazy, they're suicidal, they want to bring about Armageddon. I take all that with a fat grain of salt. Okay. There are very few suicidal leaderships in other countries, even the North Koreans.
Even Pakistan.
Even Pakistan, the idea that they're going to bring the Mahdi back if they blow up the world. I don't see that happening. I don't think the Iranians would do it. They might want to destroy Israel, but then again, the Israelis have a lot more nukes, and they would destroy Iran. I don't think that is a realistic prospect, even if they had the nuclear weapons. That doesn't mean I want them to have the nuclear weapons necessarily, but, there is a sobering aspect to the possession of such weapons. Well, Jim, thanks to you, I
get to sleep a little bit sounder, a little bit more peaceful tonight. Yeah. Thanks to you giving me that kind of reassurance.
Thank you.
I'll avoid the Hollywood movies and just listen to what you say.
Good move.
I think so. Thank you, Jim.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.